At 4 years old, the little girl, obsessed with Puppy's cuteness, was shoved against the window by her mother to receive this noble education, to learn to be a cold, contemptuous ruler. Under her mother's harsh discipline, the girl grew fearless. Even at her father's coffin, she unflinchingly prodded his sagging skin with her fingers. More curious than grieving, she wondered, does death mean new life? To uncover life's mystery, she sneaked a sapling from the pot and buried her pet chick when no one was looking. Elizabeth was convinced the chick would sprout like a seed in the soil. Days later, when she dug up the dirt to check on it, she recoiled in horror. Why hadn't it sprouted like a seed? The priest told Elizabeth seeds were alive, but the dead had lost their life force. Though their bodies decayed, souls could achieve immortality by ascending to heaven.
If it was not, I would have to raise an army to conquer death.
Her mother's education succeeded. The young girl learned to scorn everything, even death. But she forgot love could still ensnare the heart. When the girl fell for a farmer's son and became pregnant, her mother erupted in fury. She was slapped hard, then forced to watch her lover die in a brutal punishment. From then on, Elizabeth learned to hide her true self, becoming an obedient daughter and marrying the nobleman her mother chose. Even after inheriting the family fortune following her mother's death, Elizabeth stayed true to her teachings as a dutiful noblewoman. While her husband was at war, she guarded their home and children fiercely. To everyone's surprise, Elizabeth had a genius for finance. Under her stewardship, the family's wealth ballooned. Even the king, buried in debt to her, treated her with deference. But power like that draws envy. Her financial skill and her husband's military might made them the kingdom's greatest threat.
A gift from the king.
With what he still owes us, he should have gotten me the Holy Grail.
Of course, the man didn't realize it was a trap set just for him. Unaware, he guzzled wine from the king's gifted cup and soon fell gravely ill. Under his wife and children's concerned stares, he stopped breathing. At her husband's funeral, Elizabeth couldn't shed a tear. Gazing at the flies swarming his corpse, she felt nothing but disgust. The urge to conquer death had never been more urgent. So Elizabeth opened a private hospital for the poor, hoping to uncover the secret to conquering death. She needed to ensure her ticket to heaven. For this, she even kept a secret alliance with a woman called a witch. But a wealthy widow without a husband was a magnet for men's greed. At a noble banquet, an ambitious old baron propositioned Elizabeth. Elizabeth didn't even glance up, brushing him off with a casual excuse. With centuries of noble blood, she'd never marry an old lord who'd bought his title through marriage. Besides, she had no need for money or love, solitude suited her just fine. But the next moment, Elizabeth ate her words. The moment she stepped into the ballroom, she locked eyes with a young, handsome man. One look, and her heart raced uncontrollably. Long-buried desires and flutters of love woke that night. So Elizabeth made the first move.
Do you find them pretty?
Pardon?
My lips.
That is...
Do you wish to kiss them?
No.
No.
At her invitation, the boy named Tuso hesitated briefly before hopping into her carriage and heading home with her. After a night together, the woman woke early. In the sunlight, her hands were cracked like bark, while Tuso's skin stayed smooth and taut. Elizabeth suddenly remembered their first meeting 21 years prior, at Tuso's baptism. She'd once arrogantly pointed at baby Tuso and declared he'd be her husband, only to be warned, when he grows up, you'll be past your prime. And so it came to pass. Gazing at her lover's youthful skin, Elizabeth felt insecure. While the boy slept, she snipped a lock of his hair and hid it. Then she rushed back to the castle. Demanding magical moisturizing oil from her former lover, she needed to reclaim her youth and match Tuso.
Is it him you're fond of, or just the texture of his young skin?
Do not be a witch.
How old?
21.
Who is he?
Istvan Turzo.
Elizabeth. Young people change their mind all the time. He can have any woman.
Enough.
Staring at her aging face in the mirror, Elizabeth questioned conquering death for the first time. More than immortality, she craved youth. She began haunting churches, praying to God like a lovesick girl for a happy romance. After 7 days of waiting, the woman finally got a letter from her lover. She skimmed it and immediately hitched up her carriage. But before she could pour out her heart, she was told they'd elope, and the date was set. Blinded by love, the woman lost all reason. Elizabeth didn't hesitate. She decided to give up everything, just to be with her love forever. But when the day came, Tussaud didn't show. Elizabeth waited day after day, but her lover never turned up. Had he really moved on, like her ex had said? She gently stroked the stolen lock of hair, her mind swirling with questions that nearly drove her mad. The final verdict arrived.
I shall kill him! He dares to play with me! Who is he? He wrote about a young married woman, only 17 and very pretty, that I reminded him so much of his late mother!
Forget about him. I beg you.
How?
17-inch was enough to drive her crazy. Worse, she reminded him of his dead mother. She crumpled into a chair, whispering, "I'm too old, I'm too old." But she couldn't let go of her love for Tussaud. Longing sickened her. She even sewed the stolen lock into the skin over her heart, trapped in a storm of love and hate, spiraling into despair. But the truth was, it was a forged letter. Tussaud had been imprisoned by his father on the eve of their elopement. The old baron couldn't stand his son wanting to marry a woman who'd rejected him, sneering, "Love's for peasants and kids." Tussaud refused to buy his father's logic, insisting on being with Elizabeth. He believed in love and was willing to fight for it, no holds barred. When his son wouldn't budge, the old baron spread rumors that Elizabeth had a string of lovers, and even set up a man to seduce her.
Archibald, it has been 3 weeks. If you let yourself die, what will happen to your lands and children?
I do not know.
A man dressed in black is at the door, asking for you.
A young man?
She sprang to life, dashing to the parlor, only to find it wasn't her lover. Elizabeth's excitement vanished, but just then, the servant spilled wine, and rage flooded her again. But the man stopped her, murmuring, "Belts have better uses." Under his influence, Elizabeth grew addicted to the thrill of pain, her temper turning vicious. Every move she made was reported to Tussaud by the old baron, who cruelly added, "Your blood's not good enough for a baroness, and she's got a new toy now." Tussaud bought it. With his father's urging, he boarded a carriage for Denmark and agreed to marry a merchant's daughter. It wasn't until the next year, at his father's deathbed, listening to his father's broken apologies, that Tussaud realized how wrong he'd been. But it was too late.
News from Caudice. The Countess is ill.
Ill? I thought it would be wise to take a hold of these.
What I want is proof of her lunacy. At any cost.
In this hopeless love, Elizabeth had long since become a madwoman. The woman was astonished to find that her skin, nourished by the blood of a young girl, had miraculously become smooth and delicate, with all the fine lines on her face vanishing. Her original anger was replaced by delight, and she was convinced that she had discovered the secret to defeating aging. To verify her hypothesis, Elizabeth kept the young girl in the castle and arranged for dedicated caretakers to tend to her every need. But she forbade them from allowing the girl's wounds to heal. After 7 consecutive days of this treatment, she confidently sat in her chair and had her maids approach one by one to examine the state of her skin.
Darvulia, come and have a closer look.
It looks smoother to me.
Yes, absolutely.
It is the Lord's answer to my prayers. But the feel of my skin is incredibly different. As if I were younger.
The only one who spoke the truth was her former lover. De Varia privately approached Elizabeth and, with the utmost sincerity, tried to persuade her that the disappearance of her wrinkles was just an illusion. But Elizabeth was no longer willing to listen. She began to escalate her actions, no longer content with just treating her facial skin. The poor girl wasted away under the slow torture, until every drop of her use was drained. Looking at the girl's pale and lifeless face, Elizabeth had tried to stop, but it was already too late. She had long been addicted to the strange power she felt when applying the blood. In her obsessive pursuit of eternal youth and beauty, she had become a true monster. Perhaps out of guilt, Elizabeth logged every girl's name, age, and time of death, no detail missed. But as she wrote, what little goodness she had was eaten alive by her growing hunger. More maids died innocent deaths, and Elizabeth had a blood-extracting machine built to use every drop. Terribly, no one could stop her. Now, Those who surrounded Elizabeth were all sycophants without principles. Anyone who tried to stop her was ruthlessly driven away, including her once most trusted Deveria.
I'm just here to please the Countess.
No. You are here to flatter her worst side, her cruelty.
But now it is clear that she's more fond of me than she's of you, so...
Like he said, Elizabeth no longer loved or trusted Deveria. Even a meeting was out of the question. Watching her lover spiral, Deveria wrote a goodbye letter in despair. Pressing so hard the ink bled through, she hoped her death could awaken the last bit of conscience in her lover. When Elizabeth rushed to her chamber upon hearing the news, Deveria had already left the world forever. She closed her eyes sorrowfully, tears gradually soaking her thick eyelashes. It was only then that the once arrogant countess finally realized what she had truly lost. Someone who loved her wholeheartedly, and the growth of her 3 children who had been sent to Vienna. She took a deep breath, determined to follow Deveria's advice, let go of her obsession with eternal youth, and return her beauty to time. But it was too late. Her actions had already been discovered.
Many girls are gone. I found a body last year in the forest. There are demons in there. Maybe it is Bathory herself. You have to do something.
The priest quickly connected the mysterious deaths of the maids sent from the castle earlier and realized this might be a terrible case of murder. Coincidentally, just after he wrote a letter to the king, he was fatally poisoned. Rumors grew wilder, and everyone believed the countess was responsible, throwing mud at her carriage. Elizabeth was terrified and immediately wrote to her soldiers, ordering them to abandon the fight and return quickly to defend the castle's safety. But she didn't know the real threat had been under her nose. In the dead of night, while Elizabeth was fast asleep, the man began to rummage through her belongings and quickly found her secret notes. He fled with them in the middle of the night. His initial goal for entering the castle and seducing the countess was to find evidence of her madness to present to the king in order to gain a title and promotion. Everyone knew that the king, who was in massive debt, had long wanted to bring down Elizabeth and her family. Now, with the evidence in hand, the king ordered a thorough investigation into the missing girls, and the man assigned to the case was Tussaud's father, an old man who had tried to marry the countess for her vast wealth but was mercilessly rejected by her. He had Elizabeth's 3 children, who were placed in Vienna, brought in and forced them to accuse their mother of witchcraft. He then assigned his son Tussaud, a man who could sway all her emotions, to gather evidence of her crimes. Worse still, Elizabeth fell ill. She suffered from a severe skin disease. Tormented by the pain, she reverted to her murderous nature and began to order the capture of noble girls, mistakenly believing that the blood of commoners was too dirty and had caused her illness. One day, her men mistakenly captured a married woman.
Trash, how lovely to meet you.
My husband will be looking for me.
Istvan Turso, is it not?
Could you possibly be Urshabet?
She shouldn't have provoked her. No matter how much time had passed, Tussaud remained the white moon in her memory, forever untarnished. She sat at her desk until dawn, only to be told that 2 horsemen had burst into the castle grounds. Elizabeth stood by the window, watching the riders approach, and for the first time in a long while, a girlish, innocent smile appeared on her face. The riders turned out to be the very person she had been longing for, Tussaud. She quickly changed into a white dress and joyfully welcomed her lover. A person living in a world of blood and corpses could never truly feign innocence. Feeling her lover's gaze, Elizabeth still mustered the courage to speak up and discovered that the letter that had separated them was the work of his father. The years of misunderstanding between them were instantly dissolved. However, when they lay together in bed, Tussaud's hands trembled with fear. Elizabeth noticed but chose not to expose him, willing to gamble her future freedom for the fleeting pleasure of the moment. In the dead of night, Tussaud opened his eyes. After confirming that Elizabeth was fast asleep, he got up and began to gather evidence of her crimes. In the basement, he found piles of proof she'd killed. But he didn't notice that the moment the door closed, a single tear silently slid down the woman's cheek. It was her choice, because the one who would judge her was her lover.
Countess Bathory, you are under arrest.
The accomplices have confessed to all of the murders.
Elizabeth was quickly convicted, but her servants were executed first. She stood by the window, watching the execution, The window was large and offered a good view, just like the one from her childhood. Through this window, she had already witnessed too many deaths. When the church listed her crimes, claiming that as many as 650 young girls had died at her hands, along with the murder of priests and the use of witchcraft, Elizabeth looked at Tussaud's father and gave a contemptuous smile. Most of the evidence was nothing but his frame-up, but it had to be said that he had orchestrated it perfectly, leaving no room for error. From the moment her husband died, her downfall had been sealed. Perhaps more accurately, from the moment she was born, from the moment she wielded immense power, the net to bring her down had already been cast. Power and love had merely accelerated her demise, but she was grateful that she had once possessed love, an eternal love. Due to Countess Elizabeth's noble status, she was ultimately sentenced to life imprisonment. The windows in her cell were sealed shut, leaving only a small opening for food to be passed through. During her imprisonment, Elizabeth reflected on many things, questioning herself much like the ancient Greeks questioned why there was a sea, why there was love, why there was death, and why there was a God. She pondered why she had feared death and why she had made the grand vow to conquer it as a child. Later, she understood that it was because she didn't believe in God or an eternal soul. Just like the chicks she had buried as a child, it would only rot after death and leave nothing behind. The rumors of her bloodlust would spread for centuries because history is nothing more than a chronicle written by the victors. But love, on the other hand, was the dagger that remained embedded.